the amazing accomplishment that took place here in Washington to really make this idea of AUKUS a reality. And it's happening, again, not only in terms of legislation passed, but it's also happening in real life. Hi, this is Congressman Joe Courtney. I'm speaking to you on December 18th, which is roughly the one-year anniversary of Congress taking an historic step to pass, as part of the annual defense authorization bill, provisions in the law that puts into place the AUKUS security agreement. The AUKUS security agreement is a three-nation collaboration by Australia, the United Kingdom, and the US, which again allows those three countries to address a much more contested security environment in the Indo-Pacific. Before I start, I just want to let you know I'm standing in the committee room of the United States House of Representatives Armed Services Committee. This is the committee which again was the funnel that these provisions in the law that now have been on the books for a year passed through. Again, the National Defense Bill is a provision that has been enacted by Congress for 64 straight years, and last year, again, will be long remembered because of the AUKUS provisions which was included. As some of these posters I'm going to show you demonstrate, again, some of the, I think, high points of AUKUS and also the progress that's been made in AUKUS. So this picture shows again, a meeting which took place at Naval Base Port Loma in San Diego in the spring of 2023, when the three heads of government came together to, again, announce the pathway to implement AUKUS, which the three countries had agreed to in September of 2021. Again, it's a very complex agreement in terms of some of the moving parts, but what took place on this date when the three heads of state gathered in San Diego was when basically the unveiling of the plan of how these three countries are going to work together and make it a reality. So our next poster, which shows sort of what the provisions that were included by Congress, shows some, again, of the high points. So first on the list is the provisions that will allow Pillar 1 of AUKUS. Again, the program as it came out in March with the three heads of state basically broke the program down into two buckets, Pillar 1 and Pillar 2. Pillar 1 is to help Australia recapitalize its submarine fleet, which again today is still in operation, but with aging diesel-electric Collins-class submarines. And included in the plan that was announced in March was to allow the United States to sell, United States Navy to sell a minimum of 3 Virginia-class submarines, which are nuclear-powered, conventionally armed submarines, to the nation of Australia. This provision, again, by itself is a historic milestone. The U.S. has never, in the history of its nuclear-powered submarine program going back to the 1950s, ever let go of one of these submarines, whether slightly used or brand new production. So again, this was a big decision by Congress to release as part of a sale one of the crown jewels of our national defense. And again, that was, again, passed with a strong bipartisan vote. It also allowed the United States to accept Australia's contribution to the U.S. submarine industrial base to the tune of $3 billion. So in addition to actually purchasing the submarines, they're actually investing in expanding the capacity of our submarine industrial base to achieve what is going to be necessary, which is a higher level of production. Again, that's another history maker. The fact that another country is investing in our industrial base was so novel that we actually had to pass a law to authorize Australia's decision, bold decision, to move forward with that contribution. It also broke down some of the State Department barriers that will allow Australian submarine maintenance and shipyard workers to actually participate side by side with American shipyards and American and U.S. Navy personnel to get into the swing of what it is required in terms of maintaining and repairing nuclear-powered submarines, which again, Australia, their fleet has a different technology up to this day. And again, it also allows the State Department to fast-track the sharing of technology, which again will make the mission of AUKUS more successful. Again, going back to the Cold War, the State Department, the U.S. State Department had put into place very strict export controls, which limited the type and amount and volume of technology that would be shared even with our closest allies, whether it's in Europe or whether it's in the Pacific region. So again, this provision in some ways was probably the most scrutinized by Congress when it went through. But as I said, it's created sort of a fast track, fast lane for technology to get to the three countries, the three partners, really almost in real time, as opposed to waiting years in some instances for licenses from the State Department. And it also added Australia and the UK to the U.S. Defense Production Act, which again is a law that's been on the books going back to the 1950s, and it allows the Defense Department to make really important catalytic investments in necessary material, equipment, and in this case, because of the fact that Pillar 2, which is dealing with really exquisite technologies, that the three countries are now going to share, again, in terms of just sort of raising their ability to implement deterrence in the Indo-Pacific region. This provision, again, allows Australia and the UK to benefit from that stimulation, that acceleration that the Defense Production Act has provided for many years. Again, all of these provisions, really required a completely different mindset in the Congress in terms of sharing, as I said, programs, platforms, technologies, which in the past had been closely guarded. But it, in some ways, I think is a real testament to the fact that the three nations, again, have such a high level of trust and agreement in terms of what's important in terms of protecting international rule of law and, again, the democratic values that all three countries share. And in order to get those provisions through the Congress really took a lot of effort. It didn't happen just by itself. And I think that there's no question that the intensive effort to educate members that the UK Embassy and the Australia Embassy did, both in the House and the Senate during 2023, was instrumental in achieving the milestone of getting these provisions passed into law. Again, very quickly, just to put that in historical perspective, if you go back to the 1950s when, again, a similar effort was attempted by the government of Great Britain with the support of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, it took 13 years to get a similar type of measure through the U.S. Congress. The provisions that we passed last year were enacted really over the space of about 6 or 7 months, quite extraordinary. So again, those provisions were passed into law. The question that comes up a lot in the wake of the enactment of AUKUS authorities is, well, what's actually happening out there? And that's actually sort of the fun stuff to talk about 1 year later. And this poster actually shows a perfect example about how the congressional authorities are going into play. One of the threshold requirements, particularly in Pillar 1, for the Australian Navy is to train up and skill up in terms of the operation of nuclear-powered submarines. Again, they have a very capable submarine force today, which again does great work in collaboration with the U.S. and other allies. But again, the technology that they operate is diesel electric. Obviously, nuclear propulsion is a completely different sort of animal for people to understand and to deal with. And what this picture represents is the joint training that has been taking place. This is a picture which took place, which was taken in my district up in Groton, Connecticut, home of the Groton Submarine Base, the part of the U.S. Navy that trains every single submariner, particularly in terms of nuclear propulsion operation, going back really for decades and decades. Again, this was the first class of Australian naval officers that came up to Groton to attend sub school and passed all of their certifications with flying colors. And that process has been continuing ever since, again, this sort of pioneering class came through. This is another picture of enlisted Australian sailors that also graduated from sub school up in Groton. And again, you can sort of feel the energy and positivity in terms of the process that they just experienced. And a lot of them, along with the officers, are now working on board U.S. Virginia-class submarines in Hawaii and now in Guam, again, after going through these training programs. Again, this group of enlisted sailors, again, who were the first enlisted class folks to go through the program, passed their qualifications with flying colors also. And as I stand here today, again, there are more classes that are flowing through so that, again, the sort of threshold question about how Australia as a sovereign nation is going to operate the nuclear-powered submarines, which are going to be sold under the AUKUS plan and AUKUS law that we passed last year. You obviously need to have the personnel to be able to accomplish it. Just in the course of the last few months or so, we've seen evidence of just how successful that effort is. An Australian naval officer guided the USS Hawaii into Perth a number of months ago. Again, a real first in terms of having someone at the helm of a nuclear-powered submarine from Australia. And also an Australian naval officer was given Dolphins, which again is a medal and a award for someone who, again, has achieved the highest level of proficiency in that sort of area. There's also, I think, another question which, again, gets asked frequently, which is, well, how is the U.S. going to produce enough submarines to satisfy that first provision in terms of selling Virginia-class submarines to Australia? Again, it's no secret. The U.S. right now is going through its own recapitalization process. Their fleet of submarines that were built back in the 80s, and 70s, 80s, and early 90s, the Los Angeles-class submarines are aging out. As a result, there's a lot of effort that's being put into the submarine industrial base in the U.S. to recapitalize our own fleet, as well as a new program, the Columbia-class submarines, which are ballistic submarines that are not part of AUKUS. But again, that's all happening at the same time that we're really focused in terms of trying to hit the timeline for sale to Australia in the early 2030s. So this chart, I think, is very instructive in terms of just where, in fact, the U.S. industrial base stands. And this is a chart which goes back to the 1950s. I know that the print is pretty small there, but it shows, again, the production of submarines that goes into a peak in the early 1960s. Again, that was at a time when they were building submarines, both attack submarines and ballistic submarines, the 41 for Freedom. Again, after that work got completed, you can sort of see that the output fell down. Again, this is tonnage. This chart shows the amount of tonnage of shipbuilding that the submarine industrial base was accomplishing. During the Cold War, again, you can see it jumped up again significantly in terms of the amount of tonnage that the submarine industrial base was producing for the Ohio-class program, which was the ballistic submarine program, along with the Los Angeles-class submarines. So again, this was a period of intense activity in the shipbuilding sector, and it sort of puts into perspective, what we've done in the past. Again, back in this time period, we were producing 3 to 4 Los Angeles-class attack submarines at the same time. One Ohio-class ballistic submarine was being produced, which is, again, sort of what the demand signal is calling for right now for both the U.S. and AUKUS. With the end of the Cold War, there was obviously a dramatic drop-off in terms of tonnage. The shipyards shrunk significantly in terms of its workforce. The Electric Boat Shipyard, which is in my district, went from a workforce of roughly about 26,000 down to 7,000 at this low ebb of production. Back when I first came into Congress, we started to kind of jumpstart the Virginia-class program, which was kind of limping along at 1 sub per year to get up to 2 subs. And again, that production level, again, was growing and held pretty steady. But starting in 2012, when it was pretty clear, we were going to have the new ballistic submarine program, as well as trying to get that production level for Virginia to move up. The amount of tonnage, again, has started to climb significantly. This orange stripe shows 2024. And it's clear that, with the work that's been done in terms of new hiring, increasing the supply chain companies, that in fact we're seeing, I think, a pretty impressive growth number. So again, a lot of the sometimes critics of AUKUS, have really sort of cited the fact that the U.S. industrial base is not going to be capable of hitting the goal of both the U.S. and Australia in terms of their submarine fleet. I would just note they are sort of looking backwards when they make those comments, because there was no question there was definitely a plateauing that took place during COVID, and that clearly set the Virginia program back at a time when, again, the demand for building Columbia subs was also happening simultaneously. But we've seen already now that we're really starting to show positive movement, significant positive movement in terms of the tonnage. But we've got more work to do, no question about it. And that's why I think having the assistance of Australia to invest in the Virginia-class program is certainly very welcome. But I would also note Congress has also done its own work in terms of historic levels, not just of acquisition appropriations and funding, but also investing in the submarine industrial base. And again, coming from a district which is the home of the general contractor of both the Virginia program and Columbia, we have seen this happening in real time. In 2023, Electric Boat, the contractor, hired 5,300 people in 1 year. As we come to the close of 2024, they're going to be at roughly 4,000 hires this year, and the projection for next year is going to be at a similar pace. The job training programs, the secondary education programs that are now really shifting to an emphasis on metal trades skills is really succeeding, and we also are seeing good growth in terms of the supply chain, which is obviously a critical part of this. So, I'm just going to end, again, focused on this point. This is a picture of USS Iowa, which is being built down in Groton, Connecticut. And today, in December 2024, it is literally hours away from when I'm speaking of when it's going to be delivered to the U.S. Navy. This will represent the 24th Virginia-class submarine. Earlier this year, the 23rd USS New Jersey was delivered and commissioned to the U.S. Navy. Next year, in 2025, the USS Massachusetts is going to be delivered and commissioned to the U.S. Navy sometime in the spring. And later in the year, USS Idaho, which is being built in Groton, is also going to be delivered to the Navy. If you go into the following year, it looks pretty promising that the USS Arkansas and USS Utah, again, are really on track for delivery to the Navy. And I want to end with that point, which is that, people, I think, the support for the submarine industrial base, and we're seeing it happening as I'm standing here in terms of the new defense authorization bill this year, which has given some really good help to the submarine industrial base in terms of workforce issues, as well as authorizing robust funding to keep the contracts fully paid for, has just huge bipartisan support here in Congress. And I personally, as someone who's very close to this issue, feel that as that tonnage chart showed, and the fact that Iowa, which was built during the height of COVID, is ready for delivery. It just finished its sea trials with high grades from the U.S. Navy in terms of all of the stress tests that it was put through during those test runs, shows that the industrial base is going to respond to the call. As the year comes to an end and we look back in terms of just not just the enactment of the AUKUS authorities, which put on the books in writing the legal authority to execute AUKUS, We are really in a place right now where AUKUS implementation is happening in real time, not only in terms of legislation passed, but it's also happening in real life in terms of the three countries really moving out in a really smart and high tempo to make sure that the goal of creating a free and open Pacific and a safer world is going to be accomplished. For those who listened, thank you, and look forward to working together in the next Congress to make sure that all this progress is retained and moves forward. Thank you for listening.